In this video, let's start taking a look at the MIDI side of things and how we can input MIDI data into Bitwig Studio. You can do it via two ways. You can either do it via a MIDI controller keyboard or by your caps lock key on your computer keyboard. I'm going to explain both methods. Obviously, the one is where you've got your MIDI controller in your studio setup, but if you want to be more mobile and you haven't got a MIDI controller with you, then you can use the caps lock key method. So let's first go to the dashboard and then under settings and controllers. Now here we can set up our controllers. You simply just click add controller and you can choose your hardware vendor. So for example, I've got a Novation keyboard, a Launch Key MK2. So I could click here and then go to my Launch Key MK2 and add the device and set up the MIDI input and MIDI output. So for this, it uses two devices. It's got the Launch Key MIDI that uses the MIDI keyboard controller, and the Launch Key in control gives you control over the faders and knobs and transport controls. That's one way of picking it up if it picks up your hardware vendor. If it doesn't, you can create a generic controller. So you can just click add controller, leave it set as generic, and then decide what you want to use. If you've got a controller like some faders and knobs, you might want to set up a controller so that you can automate these to parameters or assign them to parameters. Maybe you've got a keyboard that has some controller capacity on it, like some knobs and faders as well. Then you could use this option. Or if you've just got simply a MIDI keyboard, you can select this. I'm going to go for this method, click add, and then under here, I'm going to choose my MIDI port. So this is the MIDI port that's set up on my system. Here, you can turn your controller on and off and enable it. And let's see if this is all working. So I'm just going to close this down and I'm going to add an instrument track. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to go to the instruments, the Bitwig devices. Let's go for something simple, maybe the phase 4. And let's test out. I'm going to play on my keyboard controller. So perfect. So there we go. We've set up a MIDI input. On your device here under the instrument track, you can see all your inputs. So here are all the inputs that I've got available on my system. As you can see, if I go over to the Launch Key MK2, this is my keyboard controller here, and here are all my MIDI channels. So for example, I could select a specific MIDI channel that I want to use just for that instrument. Maybe for this phase 4, I only want to use MIDI channel 1, where if I go to another instrument, maybe like this Rhodes, on this, I want to use only MIDI channel 2. So that's the options that you have available to you. It's quite handy just leaving it set to all inputs, because no matter what input you use, it's going to detect it. Now I want to show you the computer keyboard. So the computer keyboard is if you're using the caps lock key. So if I hit the caps lock keyboard on my keyboard, computer keyboard, and I hit A, as I go up, you can hear those notes. And that is at a low octave. So if I hit Z or X, I can jump down or jump up an octave. So let's hit X. Let me show you this a bit more clearly. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a drum instrument. So for this, I'm going to create an instrument, a Bitwig device, a container, and then the drum machine. Now this is an empty instrument. So let's load up something into these slots. For C1, the MIDI notes or keyboard notes of C1, I want to add a kick. That's good. I can audition it here. And then for D1, I want to add a snare. So I'll go for the E snare over here. And here's the snare. Let's just shorten the decays on those snares. I just want quite snappy. And increase that output. And the same for the kick. These are just some quick edits that I want to do, but don't worry too much about this. It's just some preference that I like for the sounds. So watch here when I press Z or Z. And then I'm going to hit a keyboard. So as you can see, it's lower. So I'm going to hit Z again. And now it jumps down into the key. So if I press X, it's up an octave. X again, it's up an octave. X again, it's up an octave. So there you can see what's happening. So I'm going to just hit Z twice, maybe 3 times. And there I'm down to my notes that I've got set up here. So this is C1 and D1. And C1 is A on my caps lock keyboard. And D1 is S. So there you go. So that's how to use 2 different types of MIDI controllers and how to set them up in Bitwig Studio. You can either set up your MIDI controller either as a generic controller or use the preferred hardware vendor, or you can use your computer keyboard This works really well if you've got a notebook or laptop or MacBook and you're on the go and you just want to write some ideas in quickly. You can just use your computer keyboard and input that note data in. So that's how to set up your MIDI devices. Now next up, let's take a look at how we can program and input some MIDI note data into Bitwig.